Good morning and welcome to Survive and Thrive. I'm Bill Fulton, your host, and today is Friday, September the 8th. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about a thread that I kind of had go viral on Twitter. About 100,000 of you saw it, and quite a few of you commented on it. And obviously, if it's going to be that popular, it's probably something we should delve into a little bit deeper. Essentially, what the thread was about was, that during COVID, a lot of us went and worked from home and we learned new skills and became a little more self sufficient. And now, those companies, even though we were more productive and it saved the companies money in the long run, are attempting to claw us all back. I talked a little bit about how those companies are talking about retaining their company culture, and what they really want to do is retain control. um After COVID, we saw the great breakup, where hundreds of thousands of people moved to other jobs, because they had the time to sit down and think about, hey, is this job worth it? Do I really, really want to be doing this? Are they paying me enough? And we're still seeing a shortage of labor within the market. And we're seeing wages continuously rising. And this is the first time in a very, very long time that that's happened. And we're also seeing a lot of people who have chosen to not get back into the employee employer relationship and have gone and decided to become entrepreneurs. And a lot have just demanded that if they're going to work, they're going to work from home. And I think the larger issue being lost in this is that this is a systemic change that we're seeing in how people work and what their expectations are of their employers. And the employers will fight this tooth and nail. The last thing that they want is for people to understand their own value, to understand that their job doesn't define them, to put up boundaries between them and their employer. Um, the quiet quitting movement, which I really don't like the word quiet quitting, the phrase, but where people are just saying, I'm going to do the work that I am paid to do, no more, no less. Companies have grown to expect a certain amount of free labor from you. They expect you to answer your phone. Many, I'm not saying all here, and I am going to generalize a lot. I did in the post, and some people got on me for that. But this is just these are generalizations. I know that everyone has a unique situation. There's lots of outliers. I get that. But, these companies are pretty much just saying, um, you know, you used to answer emails at 8 p.m. at night. You used to pick up the phone after business hours. What's going on? And you're saying, well, I'm not paid to do that. I don't have to do that. And that's scaring these companies because the company culture is really just keeping you so tired and so focused on making that next level, that next raise, that next promotion, to where you never ever actually get time to introspectively look at yourself and decide if this is the world you want to be in or if you want your job to be your life. We are told so often that our jobs are our life. I mean, pretty much the second, third question you'll ever get from anybody after what's your name is what do you do for a living? And it's so ingrained into our culture that our jobs are this identifying factor. It's part of our identity. Instead of our jobs are what we do for money so that we can actually live. And living, as many of us found out during the pandemic when we were stuck at home, involves a lot more than just going to work and going to home and being exhausted on the weekends and getting the minimal done. we saw that communities were coming together. Neighbors were meeting each other after the pandemic and with the work from home. When people had more flexibility, when they weren't burning 2, 3 hours a day commuting, when they weren't, you know, working till midnight on emails that they didn't need to work on, when people stopped being exhausted, got out of their homes, back into their neighborhoods. We also saw a fundamental shift in people that were essentially stuck at home and decided to learn new skills. They learned how to make bread, they grew gardens. Um, Back to why corporations see that as a problem, it's not just that your employer needs to employ you. And it's not just that they need to keep you tired and kind of run down so that you don't ever look for other options. It's also because so many other parts of our system, because we're a consumerist based economy, depend on you buying crap. And they depend on you staying in that system. When people stopped driving, oil prices went incredibly down. Oil traders lost tons of money. Oil companies lost tons of money because people weren't driving. They need you in those cars. Automobile companies lost tons of money. Why? Because you weren't putting as many miles on your vehicles. They need you to put those miles on. And all the support services that manufacture the tires and, you know, the lubricants and the gas, everything that just involves just your car needs you going to work every day so that you can give them that little pittance that you earn for doing it. The large grocery chains, they need you not having the time to make your own bread, to grow your garden, to can your own food. That's what they depend on. They depend on you having to stop there, grab a few things so that you can make a quick dinner before you pass out from exhaustion and do it all again the next day. And when all that started going on and they actually saw um, how much of your resources they were losing and you were keeping, then the back to the office movement started. We are in the full swings of back to the office. Now, some companies are decent human beings and good companies and are allowing as many of their people to work from home as possible because their models are not based on keeping you subjugated. Many, many, many companies, even against their own best financial interests, are bringing you back in. Because if you're not there, they can't justify the $1 million office building or the $20 million office building. If you're not there, they're losing money on that office building, or a real estate company is losing money, and the real estate companies are owned by the same investment firms that own most of the stocks of most of the companies you work for. So it's very intertwined and interconnected. And a lot of folks have been like, well, you know, if the production was better when people were at home, then, you know, companies' jobs are to make money. Why would they bring you back in the office? Well, because that's not all it's about. It's about the whole system that we have. And that is based almost entirely on these large metropolitan areas shoving as many people into these high rise buildings as possible so that they have the density to essentially make money off you. If you are not commuting 3 hours a day into 3 hours back and forth a day into work, then they can't charge you for all those things. If you don't have to live, you know, stacked on top of each other in apartments, um, then they can't inflate the real estate value. If you go and you grow your own garden, then they can't charge you for, you know, eggplants from halfway across the world. It's a whole system set up just to exploit you. While a lot of people wanted to make this about COVID, I really want to stress that we're not talking about COVID here. We can talk about pandemics and reactions to them. I'll do that in another video. What we're talking about is when people started to make a fundamental shift in understanding their work-life balance. And COVID allowed us to do that, but it's not necessarily about COVID or the pandemic. This is about people beginning to realize that life doesn't revolve around who writes their paycheck. And that scares the holy living shit out of corporations. The last thing that they want you to realize is that your life doesn't revolve around them. And it's one of the reasons that we don't have single payer health care in this country. It's because employers, even though they'll complain about how much they have to pay for your benefits and your health care, want you tied to them. They want you to be afraid that you will lose your health care if you quit. They want you to be as dependent as possible on them. Essentially, there used to be this thing called company towns. A lot of them were mining areas of Appalachia. A lot of them were out west during the railway days. And what a company town was, it was a town that the company built. And a lot of these places would actually pay you in company script. You wouldn't even actually get real dollars. You would have to trade your company script in for dollars. And the company script, of course, was only accepted at company stores, which if you lived in one of these company towns, that's all that was allowed there because the company owned everything. And we're essentially living in a giant company town now. The whole of the United States has become a company town because everybody is there taking every dollar they possibly can from you. Be it the grocery store, the gas station. And they're taking all that money and they're consolidating it, and it's not going into your communities. It's going to shareholders, and it's going to large corporations. That's it. When you spend $1 within your community, it creates $4. When you spend $1 at Walmart, your community gets about a cent and a half. That's where it becomes so wrong. And the more that we become self-sufficient as communities and as individuals, the more we do at home, the less that we buy into this, the not only more sustainable and ecologically minded is that, but it's supporting us. It's supporting our local economies. It's keeping that money here. And that money stays here and it grows in your community. And you get to use that money as purchasing power for things for your community. It's very important to corporations that we sever a lot of those community bonds. And the more dependent you are on the corporation for essentially, your friends, your community, your livelihood, your medical care, the more dependent you are, the less likely you are to leave that chain of events. They want complacent workers. They don't want people to necessarily be happy. If you're happy, that means your needs are fulfilled. And if your needs are fulfilled, if you don't feel like you have to stay there, then you're not going to put up with as much shit. You're not going to put up with crap from middle management. You're not going to answer those emails at 8 p.m. because you want that next promotion and you don't want to be that one guy that, nobody likes. And they want that dynamic. They specifically are growing that. So fight it. If you apply for a job and it can be done from home, insist you work from home. If you are in a job that can be done from home, ask them why. And if they don't give you a good enough reason, the labor market is tight enough right now, quit. Go someplace else. You don't need that. You need to live your life and be happy. And that doesn't involve jobs, and it doesn't involve making a multimillionaire a more multimillionaire. It involves spending time with the people you love and doing what you love. We work so that we can glean those few moments of happiness out of life. We don't work for happiness. That's all I've got for you guys today. Feel free to comment. Say hi to me on Twitter. And thanks for listening.